Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Am I audible now?
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Okay. Okay. I hope you are able to see my screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, fine. So, today, the last class, we were discussing about the sources of water. Okay. Like, after you have forecasted the population, what will be the future population to design a water supply scheme. So after that, you have to know the source. The planners, they plan exactly from where they are going to, find the source. So they go for searching the sources of water. So there were two kinds of sources. One was your surface source, and the other one was your subsurface source, also known as your underground source. So after you have found out the source, so now you have to withdraw the water from the source, and you have to take it to a withdrawal conduit. So intake, so this is a intake, no, it is generally the basic function of this intake is to what, is to withdraw the water from the source, like if it is a pool, or if it is a river, or if it is a underground source like tube wells. So just the basic function of the intake structure, it is to withdraw the withdraw water from the surface source, and then it takes the water up to the withdrawal conduit. So after that, after it takes to the withdrawal conduit, so from there the water, normally it flows to the treatment plant. Okay, so it is taken to the withdrawal conduit, and after that the water, it flows to the water treatment plant. So this is the basic work of a, or the basic function of a intake. Okay, so for intake, just give me a second. Okay, so there are certain factors which governs the while choosing the location for our intake. There are certain factors which the planners, they have to carefully they select to carefully select the location of our intake, where you are going to put the intake. So that is there are certain factors that are governing. So what are the factors you see? So like as far as possible, the site, it should be near the treatment plant, so that the cost of conveying water to the city is less. So what happens is that suppose the treatment plant is wherever the treatment plant is there, so you should keep the site for your intake, the location of a intake nearby to the treatment plant, so that so that the cost of the conduit, or the cost of the conveying water, that means you have to use conduits for withdrawing the water, or for taking the water to the treatment plant so that it becomes less, the cost becomes less, so that it should be the site and the treatment plant, it should be nearby. So that is one factor. So number two factor is that the intake, it should be located in a purer zone of the source, so that the best possible quality of water is withdrawn from the source. So as much it is possible, you should keep the the location of the treatment plant, or sorry, the location of the intake at the near the purer zone of the source, like purer zone of the river, so that like the quality of the water, it is very like clean. The quality of the water is clean. So if the water remains clean, so what will happen is that the load on the treatment plant, it will be less. So in the treatment plant, so there will be no further no extreme work will be there for for a treatment. So that is your second point. So number third point is that the intake, it must not be located at the downstream or in the vicinity of the point of disposal of wastewater. So it is same thing, that the intake, it must be located near the purer zone of the source, and it should not be located at the downstream site where there is maximum possibility of the disposal of the wastewater. So like this, next point, it is that the intake, it should never be located near the navigation channels, as otherwise there are chances of intake water getting polluted due to the discharge of refuse and waste from ships and boats. That means, wherever there is a navigation channels, like, there are ships and there are boats. So in that kind of places, the intake, it should not never be located in nearby any type of navigation channels, because there is a chance that those navigation channels, they discharge any kind of refuse or any kind of waste in the water. So there is a maximum possibility of the intake water to be getting polluted. So therefore you should not the intake, it should not be located near the navigation channels. So next point is that the the intake, it should be located at a place from where it can draw water even during the driest periods of the year. So like there are some places, or there are some rivers where there are some perennial rivers and there are some non-perennial rivers. So non-perennial rivers are like they get dry during the summer seasons. So it should not be like that. So the intake, it should be chosen, the location of the intake, it should be chosen in such a way that the water, it can be drawn even during the driest periods of the year. So there are like more points like this. So these are some of the main important factors which govern the while you locate the intake. So now there are different types of intakes. So this part you will be self-studying. Okay, so these are the different types of intakes. Number one is your simple submersed intake. Okay, then there is a diagram of the intake here. Then next is your intake tower. So within intake tower, two types are there. One is your wet intake tower and the dry intake tower. Then is your canal intakes. So all these intakes, the function of the intake is same, but the design, the construction of each one of the intake is different, little bit different. So this part you self-study by yourself. Okay, types of intake, you just give a study and you see the diagrams, and then you just give a study of the different types of intakes by yourself. Okay, and if there is any problem, then you can ask me in the later class. Okay, so you have understood the function of your intake. Okay, so now you know that from the source, the water, it is withdrawn up to the withdrawal conduit, or to the withdrawal conduit through a intake. So intake, the basic function is to withdraw the water from the source and take it to the withdrawal conduit, and from there withdrawal conduit, the water is taken up to a water treatment plant. Okay, so this is the basic function of a intake. So now next we are going to study about the Next, we are going to study about the quality control of municipal and industrial water supplies, or in short, you can say that it is the treatment of water. Before, like treating the water in the treatment plant, so you have to know certain characteristics of the water. Okay, so before treating the water in the treatment plant, if you know the characteristics of the water, like what is the physical characteristics of water, what are the chemical characteristics of water, and you find out that this much of turbidity is this much of physical characteristics are there, or this much of chemical characteristics are there, then it will be easy for the next step to do the treatment of how to remove those things. Okay, how to remove those physical characteristics or how to remove those chemical characteristics from the water. So first comes the characteristics of water. So the this raw water that you have taken or that has been withdrawn from the this source of this any kind of source, so that raw water, it is first of all, it is checked, and first it is analyzed, okay, by studying the different tests involving under physical, chemical, and all the microscopical characteristics. So there are three characteristics. One is physical, then chemical, then comes your microscopical. Okay, then under your physical characteristics, there are, what are physical characteristics? So the physical characteristics are those which you can see by your naked eye, or you can feel. Okay, by touching the water you can feel or you can taste. So all those things which are in physical relation, like so those are known as your physical characteristics of the water. So in physical characteristics, there are these are divided into certain terms. That is, your number one is your turbidity. Okay, turbidity, then comes color, then comes taste or odor, then comes your temperature, and then comes your specific conductivity. So all these five things you can, these are physical characteristics. So you can see, either you can see, or either you can taste, or either you can feel. Okay, so what is now turbidity? So turbidity, if I say that you take a bowl of water, or if you take a beaker of water, and if you put some mud, or if you put some silt in that water, so what will happen? Finally, the water, it will become little bit dirty, or it will become muddy in appearance, isn't it? So that is that terminology which you will refer to, that is your turbidity. Okay, so turbidity is, you can say that if those are suspended matters, okay, that clay, silt, or any other like organic materials that are present in the water, so those are suspended matters. And if any volume or any amount of large amount of suspended matters are present in the water, so these will appear to be muddy, or you can see the terminology as turbid. Okay, so that will appear turbid in nature or turbid in appearance. Okay, so this turbidity, obviously it will depend upon how much of concentration of particles that are present in water, how much of volume of suspended matters are present in the water. Okay, so this turbidity or this color or taste, these physical characteristics that are present in the raw water, obviously it will it will not harm you. It will not harm if you consume that water also. It will not harm your health, and it is not harmful. But yet you have to remove those things. Otherwise, due to our like everyone, we wish to drink a very clear and a pure water. We cannot drink a muddy water, we cannot drink a turbid water. So that is, these suspended particles, they are everywhere in every kind of water. Those particles are they remain in water, but in different percentages. So this turbidity we have to treat it. We have to treat it because in extreme quantity we cannot drink it, or also it will for aesthetical reasons also we cannot drink, or for any psychological reasons also nobody is going to drink a turbid water. Okay, so for that, the turbidity of the water, it have to be first of all measured, and then it has to be treated to reduce. You cannot remove the turbidity to zero. Okay, you cannot remove the turbidity to zero value, but you can reduce the turbidity. Okay, it is possible to reduce the turbidity to a permissible limit. So this turbidity, first of all, it is measured by a turbidity rod or a turbidity meter. Okay, so turbidity, how the turbidity is measured? It is measured by a turbidity rod or a turbidity meter. Okay, and what is the unit for turbidity? It is your milligram per liter or ppm. So what is ppm? Okay. Okay, so the turbidity, it is measured in milligram per liter or ppm. So ppm is your parts per million. Okay, the full form of ppm is parts per million. So parts per million and milligram per liter are the same thing. Okay, either you write milligram per liter or you write parts per million. So like while measuring the turbidity of water, so there is a standard unit. Okay, there is a standard unit for measuring the this turbidity. Okay, so this turbidity, the standard unit is that there is 1 milligram of finely divided silica. Okay, so there is 1 milligram of finely divided silica. If that 1 milligram of finely divided silica, it is if you say it is mixed with 1 liter of distilled water, so that gives you the standard unit how to measure the turbidity. So like the standard unit is that by which it is produced. How the standard unit is produced? By if you mix the 1 milligram of finely divided silica in 1 liter of distilled water. So that is the standard unit for measuring turbidity. Okay, and a turbidity, if it is in excess of 5 units, so the turbidity can be detected in a glass of water. Okay, and the turbidity for in a clear lake, in a lake water, if it is a clear lake water, what is the turbidity? The turbidity is about 25 units. Okay, or 25 milligram per liter. So first you remember that if the turbidity, it needs to be like detectable by your naked eye or in a glass of water, so that should be in excess of 5 units. And if the turbidity in a clear lake water, it is about your 25 units. Okay, and for muddy water, if the water is muddy, so it will exceed your 100 milligram per liter. Okay, and what is the permissible limit of turbidity? The permissible limit of turbidity is 5 to 10 units. Okay, 5 to 10 units of drinking water. That means if in a water the turbidity is in between 5 to 10 milligram per liter, so that water you can drink. There is no harm, or there is it remains. So 5 to 10 units of turbidity, it remains in any kind of drinking water. Okay, but that is not like easily detectable, or it is it is permissible. That means you can drink. Okay, so this is about your turbidity. Okay, then next is okay, so we were talking about the turbidity rod. So suppose you are in the field and you need to measure the turbidity in the field. So in the field, you can measure turbidity with the help of a turbidity rod. Okay, so this diagram you are seeing, so this diagram, it is of a turbidity rod. Okay, so what does it consist of? So it consists of an aluminum rod which is graduated as to give the turbidity directly in silica units. So we have aluminum rod. Okay, it is aluminum rod and it gives the turbidity in silica units. The graduated scale which you see here, the graduated scale which you the scale. Okay, so to the upper end of this rod is attached a graduated non-stretchable tape. So there is one tape here. So this part, there is a tape here. So it is help in lowering of the rod. So with the help of this graduated tape, you can just lower the rod or immerse the rod in the water. So a screw containing a platinum needle and a nickel ring is inserted at the lower end of the rod. So if you can see, this is a needle, this is a platinum needle, and okay. So here you can see this is a nickel ring is there and there is a needle inserted which is, it contains a needle which is a platinum needle which is 1 millimeter diameter and it is 25 millimeter in length. Okay. So this vertical rod or a stick is inserted in the nickel ring. Okay, so a vertical rod is, it is inserted in the your this nickel ring, to support the rod to stay in the vertical position. Okay, and at the upper end there is a eye mark you can see from the above. Okay, so there is a eye mark here. So there is a eye mark here. So this is the whole setup of the, this turbidity rod. Okay, so what it is done is that this whole aluminum rod or this turbidity rod, it is immersed in the water and you have to keep your eye, at the upper end of the rod. Okay, then you submerge the needle in the water, in the turbidity water. So the rod, what happens that it slowly it moves downward and you have to keep on seeing the rod till you are unable to see the needle. This needle at the downstream, at the down part, it will slightly, it will completely disappear at a point of time. So the point or the moment at which this needle it just disappears, so that is your, there are, these graduations are there, no? So at that point you can measure the turbidity. Okay, the moment at which this needle it disappears, so that at moment of time you just read the scale and that is your turbidity in silica scale. Okay, so this is the work of a turbidity rod. Okay, I hope you have understood. Okay, so next there are, for to do the test in a laboratory. This is the turbidity rod is for a field work, and for in a laboratory, if you have to measure the turbidity, so you can measure the turbidity using a turbidimeter. Okay, so turbidimeter, it is used in the laboratory, and turbid rod are used in the field. So okay, so there are again three types of turbidimeters. One is your Jackson turbidimeter. Okay, turbidimeters are again of three types. That is, number one is your Jackson turbidimeter. Jackson turbidimeter. So what is a Jackson turbidimeter? Here this turbidimeter, it can measure turbidity in the range between 25 to 1000 milligram per liter. So if the turbidity of the water is between 25 to 1000 milligram per liter, so in that case, you can use a Jackson turbidimeter and you can measure the turbidity of the turbid water. Okay, and next is your Bailey's turbidimeter. So Bailey's turbidimeter is a turbidimeter whose range you can measure the turbidity in the range of 0 to 10 milligram per liter. If the turbidity in the water is in the range of between 0 to 10, so you can measure the turbidity using a Bailey's turbidimeter. Okay, then one is your nephelometer. Okay, one is your nephelometer. So nephelometer, actually, this nephelometer unit, it is abbreviated as NTU. So NTU is your nephelometric turbidity unit. So here, these are in a nephelometer. Here, actually, what happens is that the silica unit, it is not valid here. Okay, so to distinguish the turbidities from measured in the instrumental or the visual method, so what is done is that the nephelometric turbidity units are they are abbreviated as your NTU. So NTU and NTU, this nephelometric turbidity units, again it can be sometimes referred to as FTU. So FTU is nothing but it is same as NTU, but here the F is a formazine. Okay, formazine polymer is there, so formazine polymer is used, and hence it is termed as your FTU. So basically these three are your different types of turbidimeters. Okay, so let us keep our today's class up to here. So next class we will be going to the other physical characteristics of the water. Okay. Okay, then thank you everyone. You may leave the class now.